Hey everyone, welcome to RetroBreak. Today we're checking out some brand new games that have been released for the Game Boy Color. It's been about a year now since I last looked at some Game Boy Homebrew games, and I have to say that over that time the quality has just improved dramatically. I am so impressed with all of these games. Let's get started with the first one here that is called Chantey, or Chantey. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this. I guess it's named after sea shanties. So I remember 2 years ago I actually reviewed a preview version of this, which was uploaded for the Game Boy Homebrew competition. And since that time, the developer, Gortin Code, has been hard at work coming up with his full version of the game, and I've got it right here. I was actually lucky enough to meet the developer of the game in person at Gamescom recently, and he gifted me this copy. It was great to speak to him, and it was great to play the final version of this game that I previewed all those years ago. And you can really tell the amount of love and attention that's gone into creating this final version of the game. It really is impressive to play this kind of open world style RPG game on the original Game Boy. Just after the intro's finished, which is where I got to play in the original demo, you actually get to control the pirate ship and go out into the sea. Honestly, it feels so much bigger than the confines of the Game Boy cartridge that it's housed in. It really is impressive, and if you've ever seen or heard of this game before, you'll know of its really unique battle mechanic. So instead of a usual turn-based battle system, this is actually an RPG that incorporates a music rhythm game into its battle system, and it is just so much fun to play this Beatmania style rhythm game while you're fighting pirates and going through your various different quests. And that pirate aesthetic comes across really well in the text for the game too. It was so much fun just reading what everyone had to say, and I also love the fact that when you press start to go into the menu, it actually tells you what your next objective is every step through the game, so it's really difficult to get lost too. Also, I feel like this game has some of the best pixel art that I've seen on the entire system. I just love the sprites and I love the background work in this game so much, and it really does a lot to elevate the atmosphere of the game too. Honestly, this game is just so impressive from every angle. If you look at it from the graphics, the gameplay, the storyline, the music, it really is the complete package and one of the best action RPGs for the system. Honestly, fantastic adventure game. Definitely check it out if you want a pirate-themed adventure for the Game Boy. Next up, let's take a look at the brand new Tetris game that actually came bundled with the Chromatic itself. I am a little bit disappointed that it was only bundled with a cartridge and it doesn't actually have a box, because in here it was actually just there under the console itself. But that is where the disappointment ends, because this version of Tetris has to be the best pocketable version of Tetris that I've played on the Game Boy, the Game Boy Color, or even the Game Boy Advance. It honestly rivals the DS Tetris game in terms of enjoyment, and the main reason for that is that they included all of the modern amenities that make Tetris today so much fun compared to the older versions back then. So you have the hold, you have the hard drop, you have the classic Tetris music as well, because this is actually a fully licensed brand new Tetris game. It really does feel polished to perfection, and if there was any version of Tetris that I would choose to play on a Game Boy these days, it would be the Mod Retro Chromatic version of Tetris. It really is 10 out of 10. It's as good as you could possibly hope for, and it recently had an update to allow you to play it in multiplayer mode as well. There's also a few different game modes thrown in there as well for a bit more replay value. So we have the regular marathon mode, which is the classic style of Tetris. We have ultra mode, which is a time attack mode. How many lines can you clear in a certain amount of time? And in that mode you get to choose the amount of minutes that you play the game for as well. There's also sprint mode as well, where you basically have to see how fast you can actually clear a certain amount of lines. And then there's endless mode, which doesn't end once you reach 200. And there's a bunch of options as well, so you can turn on or off any of these modern features to suit your personal preferences, so they really did think of everything. Let's check out another game for the Chromatic here. This one is called Self-Simulated, and I also met the developer for this game at Gamescom as well, and this game is such a fun action platformer. Basically, it's a very simple game where you basically just have to run from one side of the stage to the other, but every single level has a completely different, unique mechanic to it. So maybe you have abilities taken away from you, maybe you gain more abilities abilities as you go across, and there's this really unique vibe where you basically play as this robot who is kind of being glitched in and out of the Matrix, and it's also kind of got this existential, philosophical kind of storyline going on in the background at the same time, and as you're getting more and more corrupted, you're kind of questioning why you're there in this sort of simulated world and what that means to you as a robot, and it's just such a cool mashup of genres. You've got like the really hard sci-fi story, and you've got the really fast and fun arcadey platforming style gameplay, and the gameplay itself is actually really well polished. I was very impressed with how responsive the controls were, and as you play further into the game as well, there's a bunch of different moves that you can unlock, such as a slide attack that lets you go through enemies, there's a jump and dash attack and you can dash into enemies and chain those dashes to jump off walls, and there's like a down attack where you can hit the enemies down and then bounce off them. There's just so many cool mechanics in this game, and I really want to go and play more of it after this video. Next up is Defused, and this one is a really fun puzzle action game. You play as this robot here called Def, and you basically go around a variety of different levels disarming bombs that fall down from the top of the screen. They explode kind of like Bomberman within a certain radius, and as long as you're outside of that explosion radius, you're not going to get hurt, but to move on to the next stage, you need to defuse a certain amount of bombs in the levels. And as you progress through the levels, there's more and more different obstacles, and the graphics change and the music changes, and there's a bunch of different things to find along the way as well. The last time I brought up this game on the channel, I hadn't actually completed it, but since then I've been back and played through the entire game, and there's some really interesting things that happen later on in the game as well. So there's a variety of different stages where you actually find a companion that then follows you around for the rest of that level, and that means it's more difficult because you have to worry about two characters instead of just one, and there's a bunch of really interesting stage hazards as well, such as water, for example, which can push the bombs along different slopes, and there's brick walls that stop you from being able to go past a certain point, and there's a lot more hazards as well, but obviously play it for yourselves, I don't want to spoil everything. There's even a few boss fights in there too, which is really cool to see. And as well as the main game, there's also a really addictive second mode called Danger Room, and the really cool thing about this is not only are you aiming to beat your own high score, but once you actually get a high score, you actually get the option to print it out on the Game Boy printer as well, which I thought was a really cool touch, and you can also do that at the end of the main game as well. You can actually finish the main story in around an hour, so you can finish it in one sitting, and that's what I did, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. But the Danger Room really gives this unlimited replay value, and the game is just so much fun to play. I definitely recommend it if you like puzzle games, but you want something with a bit more of an action twist to it too. And after playing Defused, I had a look on Incube8's website because I was curious to see what I'd missed out on over the past few years in terms of new releases, and I was very excited to see that they actually had a bunch of demos on the site. So I downloaded all the demos, and let's take a quick look at some of the other homebrew games that have come out in 2025. And again, the quality of these demos is just absolutely mind-blowing. So let's start with Dragonhym, which is a follow-up, pseudo-sequel slash remake of sorts of a Game Boy homebrew game that I reviewed a few years back called Dragonborn. The developer took that concept and fleshed it out into this brand new Game Boy Color adventure game, and oh my god, the difference between the original version and this release is just night and day. It honestly feels like a completely brand new game from a, sorry to say this, based on the original, a much more talented development team. And it is the same person that made this, but the jump-in quality is honestly astonishing. And from what I've played of the demo, this feels like a really well-polished action-adventure. Check out my video of the original game, because I'm sure a lot of it is still more or less the same in terms of structure and the concept behind the game, but literally every single thing is improved in this one. The music was way better, obviously now it's in full colour. The battle system seems like it's had a complete overhaul. Just everything about it seems way better than it was before, so really curious to check out the full release, which I might do fairly soon. Next up is a game called Dracula Dark Reign, and this is everything that I ever wanted from a Game Boy Color Castlevania game. This is way better than Konami's actual Castlevania output on the system. This honestly feels as good, from what I've played so far in this demo at least, as the Game Boy Advance Castlevania games. It's honestly a sight to behold. It really feels like Castlevania Symphony of the Night shrunk down onto a Game Boy Color. The first thing that just blew me away was the subtle attention to detail, like the chandeliers swinging, or like the really detailed animations of the character as you're moving through this world. It also has a fully featured RPG style system and a map of the entire castle as well, just like you've come to expect with modern Castlevania style games. Honestly, I'm just so impressed at this game, and I'm definitely going to check out the full release. I love Castlevania, and especially the Metroidvania style ones, and I'm really excited to play more of this one. The next one I checked out was a game called Zephyr's Pass, and this one's an action RPG in the Zelda mold, and from what I can tell so far, this one also feels like a really well polished game too. The first thing that really drew me in was the amazing graphics and the unique setting for this game as well. It's all set within a desert, at least the part that I played was. You get to control this sand ship and you get to explore this desert town as well, and there seems to be dungeons later on in the game that kind of take heavy inspiration from the Legend of Zelda series in terms of its puzzles and also its combat mechanics too. So again, another really well polished, high quality action RPG for the system, and another one that I'm really interested in checking out the full game for too. And perhaps saving the most impressive one for last, this is Metamorphosis Collection. This one's a collection of 3 point-and-click adventure games made by Ben Gelter, the same person who made this amazing homebrew game called The Machine, which I did a video on a few years back. All 3 of these games are so impressive, not just graphically, but also in the way the games are structured as well. These honestly feel like proper PC point-and-click adventure games. The 3 games featured in this collection are Opossum Country, Decline, and Specimen 134. The game I played in this demo was Specimen 134, but I've actually played Opossum Country before, and I can say that that one is fantastic. And from what I've played of Specimen 134, he absolutely nailed that kind of 80s sci-fi aesthetic, and the sense of mystery and intrigue that you get just from this short demo is honestly enough for me to pull the trigger on the full release. 3 games of this caliber on one collection is just incredible, and Ben Gelter really seems to have a knack for making some of the most atmospheric games that I've ever played on the entire system. The Machine was one of the most atmospheric games as well, and I love this point-and-click style. It really punches well above its weight, and if these games had come out back when the Game Boy Color was new, it really would have blown people's minds, and I can honestly see all of these releases reviewing in like the high 80s, early 90s in magazines back then. So honestly, I am so impressed with what's become of the Game Boy homebrew community just from what I've seen through these games here, and I'm sure there's millions more out there that I haven't discovered just yet. I hope you enjoyed my return to the Game Boy homebrew series. Check out the playlist here if you want to check out some of my older videos. I've actually done hundreds of reviews in the past, and hopefully many more to come. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, and I'll see you all again very soon. Goodbye.